Welcome to another Smart Driving Cars podcast. We are happy you are here. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. Technical support is provided by CARTS, the Corporation for Automated Road Transportation Safety, a 501c3 corporation. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi again, Alain.
Hey, good morning, Fred, on a rainy April morning, but anyway.
April showers, right?
April showers brings May flowers.
And with us, we are very happy to welcome Henry Posner III, Princeton class of 77, chairman of the Railroad Development Corporation and adjunct faculty member at Carnegie Mellon University, and much more. Thank you for taking the time, Henry.
Great to be here.
Well, we have spent years talking about mobility and its importance. You've stepped into a place where the need has been desperate, helping to provide transportation to Ukrainian refugees. Tell us about the work you and your company have been doing.
Well, to be clear, what we're doing is we are acting in a contractor role for the German government in moving Ukrainian refugees throughout Germany to make sure that they wind up someplace where it works for them, and also they're provided with the optimum support, because integrating lots of people, even in a place like Germany, is tough. Fortunately, Germany learned a lot of lessons from Syria and has been, I think, extraordinarily well organized in dealing with this crisis, which came out of nowhere. I mean, nobody thought World War III would come out of nowhere. So, but here we are. The idea here is to concentrate flows of refugees to a central point where they can be met, accommodated, supported, and redirected in Germany and beyond. And so there has been a very organized effort to set up a corridor from the Polish border to Hanover. And in Hanover, there is a reception center where people are matched up with transportation and logistics to either go where they know they want to go, which in some cases are with friends and family in cities around Germany, or if they haven't got any place to go, they will come up with some solutions. Why Hanover? It's the biggest conference center in Germany and perhaps Europe. And because it's Germany, it's of course got its own rail station and easy access off the national network. So the idea here is to run trains from the Polish border right to the Hanover Conference Center. And from there, people can get regular trains elsewhere around Germany. So our part was to provide this service under contract to the German government.
And this is still ongoing, right?
This is still ongoing. I can tell you that the demand has diminished after the initial rush. The flow of refugees is less than it was temporarily. But the most important thing is that the links and the systems are in place. And it's from what I've heard, it seems to be going very well. My view of it is, standing on the railway platform and watching people go into the conference center. But from everything I've read, it's working quite well.
Well, I understand with all of the confusion and these people whose lives have been shredded, for want of a better word, and there's so much confusion in a situation like this. There's the language barrier to deal with, and I understand you were able to make a difference there in some respects. Tell me about it.
Well, right. So everything's organized. You got the trains organized, and things are running like clockwork, except that there are not a lot of Russian speakers in the railway world in Germany. Fortunately, among our team, we have two people who are Russian speakers, Martin Pavlik and Ed Schofield. So what we tried to do is have them, one of them in charge of every train, so that we have at least one Russian speaker on the train. That was right from the beginning. Martin Pavlik, by the way, also speaks Ukrainian and 7 other languages. So we've got this really dedicated, multicultural, self-selecting bunch of people who have spent their careers in the night train world and were there along with the night train equipment that we had accumulated as the state railways downsized, so trains, people, et cetera. So at any rate, on the 3rd day of operation, so we started on March 10th, 3rd day of operation, March 12th, I just happened to be in Germany. I said, I am not going to go home without riding a refugee train because, you know, we're part of history. And then it occurred to me to mention I'm a halfway Russian speaker. Fine. So I became the #2 Russian speaker on the train. So 480 people on the train. Our conductor was speaking Russian and Ukrainian, so I was basically his backup. But the most important thing was that this, for refugees, this is their first welcome to Germany. So you're on the station platform at Frankfurt Oder. The train comes in from Warsaw, and it's the Warsaw to Berlin train. And so the question is, do you get off the train, or do you continue on to Berlin because Berlin is the only city that you're familiar with? And so Martin would get on the PA system and speak in Ukrainian. And basically it was, I'm Martin Pavlik, I'm the train chief for the train to Hanover. Please consider getting off the train and walking across the platform and getting on this train, which will take you to the center in Hanover, where your needs will be met. And so it really is all about language and culture to have been able to do that. And so he played an extremely important role because he was not only a Russian speaker, but a Ukrainian speaker. So you imagine what people are going through. They might be traveling for 3 to 5 days just to be on that train. Their first thing in Germany is they arrive by train or bus from Poland, and all of a sudden they're being welcomed onto the train in their own language. And the boarding process is orderly because people trickle in. They don't come wave because the police would check them as they were stepping off the train from Warsaw. So a trickle of people across the platform. It was very well organized, very respectful, and very well done. So my job was basically to walk around and just see if there were any micro problems that could be solved by somebody with a 50% working knowledge of the Russian language. And so I was able to help in at most half a dozen situations. But usually when I go on these trips, you know, I'm just along for the ride. But in this case, I was actually able to do some actual work, for which I am very proud.
You wrote in your company's newsletter, history comes at you on short notice.
Right. Yeah. I mean, nobody predicted that there would be war with Russia in this century. And yet, the train was organized on 4 days' notice, which would be certainly impossible in the USA. And it has worked quite well.
I mean, Henry, I think, you know, so proud of you because, you know, it's the little things are so important. And, you know, we all sometimes think that we're going to all do all these great things as we're pontificating from our whatevers and our lecterns and so on and so forth. But in the end, it's the little things that actually make enormous difference in people's lives that are, you know, really, you know, up against it, and just a little bit of help, a little bit of order, a little bit of care, a little bit of stepping up when you have the opportunity to step up. I mean, I couldn't be more proud of you. And,
Well,
you know, it's you know, when you get the opportunity, take take advantage, step up and pitch in and help out. I mean,
Well, I learned that from you, Alan.
yeah, well, I guess, yeah, no, I've tried. I mean, I think I've tried. I think, that's basically thank you for saying that, but it's,
Well,
you know,
yeah. So I'm in Germany, and I had been scheduled to be there for months in advance. And middle of the week, the word comes down, we're flying this refugee train. So do I go home as scheduled, or do I pay a change fee and worry about not getting a seat on a flight going home in order to do this? So, I rolled the dice, and it paid off. So,
well, it would have paid off anyway. I mean, those are the kinds of things you have to do.
yeah,
You have to do.
Yeah.
I mean,
So just an example, some of the little things you made the point about, it's the little things. So little things can spiral out of control very, very quickly. And so one of the scenes on the platform at Frankfurt Oder was people are boarding, and you got the Red Cross people and the police and our people guiding people, hopping on the train. And all of a sudden a young woman vomits on the station platform. So that there are 3 Red Cross people standing there, and none of them are Russian speakers. So what's going on here? Is some plague or some disease that's going to be running through the train and all that? So I asked the woman's mother. She says, "Well, motion sickness. They got there by bus." So a small situation that could have easily spun out of control.
Absolutely.
Defused by a simple exchange of facts. So needless to say, had something like that happened at a U.S. airport, you could imagine the yellow tape. They shut the airport down, massive chaos, because nobody is willing to take the chance that they might be held responsible for taking action. And so what happened there was, our job is to move the people. And if we could move them in a respectful and humane way, we were going to do it. So here's the best part, which is the equipment that we had accumulated after the state railways dumped the night trains. It was actually quite ideal for this, because it's compartment cars. So people show up with 2 big bags, and there's plenty of space in these compartments. And more to the point, there's privacy and charging points for their phones and stuff like that. And so what they really wanted to do, I think, was just have 3 hours where they could just do nothing but recharge their phones, sleep, or whatever, for the next step in their journey. So I'm guessing that we provided them with the most tranquil part of their passage, which did not end when they stepped off the train in Hanover. It was the beginning of their next phases. And I think one of the interesting things is so are they going to go back to Ukraine? Or are they going to stay in Western Europe? Lots and lots of big questions.
Well, it's of course they're refugees, and refugees has been around forever and ever and ever and ever. And I can, just imagine, my heritage and refugeeing through Europe. I mean, damn it. It's, can you imagine being there? I mean, hey, not knowing where in the hell you're going, what your future is. Well, having to get out, I mean, it's, and it happens over and over and over and over and over. And it's just so good of you, Henry, to, do whatever happen to be there, whatever resources you have, do it. It's just, and not worrying about covering your butt or, what the hell, or, all that crap that goes on so often in these things.
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things is the number of people who had specific destinations in mind. Destinations that I heard were places like Osnabrück. That's not a German city that you normally hear spoken. Most Americans could not find that on the map, but these people had a very specific destination in mind. We're going to Osnabrück. How do we get there? To me, suggested they either had friends or family. So one of the things about this flow of people is that there are lots of Ukrainians in Western Europe, and many of them will wind up being with family or whatever. That being said, I was speaking with one of the railway people from Poland, and not many, most of the employees of this particular company, Genesee, Wyoming, Freightliner, Poland, were accommodating Ukrainians in their homes. So Poland is taking the brunt of dealing with this, and what's going on elsewhere around Europe, even Germany, helping Poland deal with the flow. Because if your intent is to go back to Ukraine, then you probably want to stay in Poland if you can. And again, the real question is, are people going to go back, or is this going to be a permanent population loss? And I think the honest answer is nobody knows.
From what we see on the news, the destruction there, it's going to take a long time for many people to have some place to go back to. Your thoughts, Henry, on if you want to share them, on the global response. You mentioned what Poland is doing.
Yeah. I mean, the global response has been very impressive. I think it's been, country by country. Some countries have had a lot of experience in dealing with refugees, like Germany with Syria. Poland has just done it because they're Poland.
They've done it before. They'll do it.
It's
Poland, Hungary too, I would imagine. Also,
yeah, and Moldova. Moldova has popped up as one of the places because there you've got a lot of Russian speakers. There are a lot of cultural links. My Russian teacher of blessed memory was Moldovan, so a lot of interesting flows of where people go. But I think the more interesting question is what's going to happen. How's Ukraine going to get rebuilt?
Yeah,
and the railway is central to that. And if you look at what the Ukraine railway is in terms of size, it's bigger than any of the US class ones, 200,000 plus people. You've seen some of the videos of the heroic way in which it has continued to operate as the lifeline of the nation, more or less nonstop. It is a pointless exercise to talk about why any of this would be impossible in the USA in terms of mounting a relief effort, et cetera. But I think the next big question is rebuilding Ukraine. What happens when there is unlimited money flowing to Ukraine to rebuild the railways? Are the institutions there capable of digesting it? Or is it going to be a free-for-all, for example, for the aid industry? So I think the next challenge will be looking at how the governance might work in terms of how aid flows and making sure that the money is spent usefully and without motivating things like corruption. I think those will be the major themes in the months ahead.
Well, a couple of points on that, I guess. You and I, we sort of watched the wall go down, and then even thought about some aspirations with respect to the old Soviet National Railway and things being able to do things in Russia with respect to that whole thing. And I know back in the day we talked about that, and then for me this is like all personal, because I can think of my father, and who knows what, 15. He was born in 2002. Probably took a train from Jablonka Wisna to Budapest, probably because of the whatever Russian incursion or whatever was happening then. You know,
Yeah, and
you know,
Alan,
whatever.
that town might have been one of those towns where that's close enough to the border where it might have been Poland or
But
Ukraine
yeah,
or whatever, depending on what war was going on at the
oh
time.
yeah, I mean, who knows whether that was Poland at that time or whether it was Ukraine or whatever. It's somewhere near Lvov, you know, but the whole business. So I mean, you know, Henry, you know, for me,
Yeah. So one interesting thing that we had in our past is we were shareholders in the only former Soviet railway to be privatized, Estonian Railways,
right?
which is one of the reasons that I learned the Russian language. So we were there for 5.5 years. And Estonia actually became more corrupt when it joined the EU, because you had all this Russian oil traffic moving across our railway, and our Russian customers found it easier to bribe the government under the guise of, oh, we've got to do this now that we're part of the EU. And that whole story is a very interesting story, but I think it's relevant because, you know, we have done business in the former Soviet railway network. I mean, who knows the next curveball that's coming about that one, but hold the thought that for rebuilding Ukraine, the railway will be central to that. And so the question is the tension between the aid industry want to go in and throw around billions of dollars and the natural tendency to see corruption evolve, because it's always been there. Right now, you got the good guys and the bad guys. But when the smoke clears, then that'll be the real tests of character of everybody. That'll be a test of character of Ukraine. That'll be a test of character of the USA and how our aid industry functions in that environment. So it's all, that's going to be a bit more about governance than, you know, what type of locomotives do they need and things like that.
Interesting insights, Henry. We know you have to run, but we want to thank you again for taking the time with us. And we know this isn't a one-off thing when it comes to your personal philanthropic efforts, even though you were under contract for this. We know many things that you've been involved in, and thank you once again for being with us.
Thank you. And I'm sure there'll be some more stories to be told in the months ahead.
Yeah, and let's hope. Well, yeah, let's hope we're around to tell them, because I mean, this is so crazy. But we won't, you know, talk about the craziness. I mean, who would have thought in 2022 that, you know, we're out there doing this kind of saber rattling? I mean, this is like ludicrous. And of course, I've written out there. I've started eating McDonald's hamburgers because I was, you know, just so proud that the fact, you know, they were one of the first ones to pull out, said get out. And then you look at some of these companies that are still in there. I mean, you say, what? I mean, cut it out, okay? You know, please.
Well, that'd be a good follow-on discussion for in this forum, a couple months down the pike. You know, let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's see what. Well, again, let's hope we get to a few. I mean, you know, the problem is that you mess around with this one. This is like crazy stuff. This is just crazy, and we don't need to talk about it. But anyway, it's nice that, you know, whenever any of us can do something that's easy for us, we stand up and do something that's easy for us, rather than sit there and, well, oh my goodness, I got to protect myself, and oh my goodness, what's the crap that goes on.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Henry. Thank you.
We'll be back, but this is a good time to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more info, head to motoetf.com. On the website, we should point out it's a good idea to read the white paper. It's called the Smart Transportation Revolution. It's under the Insights and News tab. Some great information there to help you make informed decisions about investing. And you may already know ETFs can be a smart way to spread risk with your investments and focus on a particular category of stocks. The website again is motoetf.com. We are back with more of Smart Driving Cars. Alan, it was really great having Henry Posner on to fill us in on the work he and his Railroad Development Corporation have been doing.
Yep. And yeah, really great. I mean, again, just because it was easy for him, one, and two, that he was just willing to do it. And it's, you know, I'm one of my sort of, rules of thumb or things that I sort of tell people: you prepare yourself to take advantage of opportunities as they're presented to you. And here he is. He has that. All of a sudden, this is some real need, and he's doing what he can. He's not out there overselling that he's doing more or whatever and saving the whole world, but really doing the little things. And I guess it's nice when he can accomplish some of those, and it's just I don't know. It's nice to think about. And as I said, for me, it's it's the simple things. Again, I try to think of my father as in 1916 or whatever, with whatever the hell was going on there in that part of the world, trying to whatever escape it and so on, get out of it. I mean,
And that wasn't
I can imagine there was
it wasn't the last time he had to do something like that
yeah,
either, was it?
right. And I can imagine, and my mother too, that there were Henry Posners around that did just little things that allowed him to for me to be here. So for me, it's a big thing.
Absolutely. A few stories to get to this week.
Yep.
GM's CEO, Mary Barra, in an Axios interview this week, said the Cruise Origin, being built as robo-taxis, will be put on the street in January of next year. Maybe that's going to be CES. I don't know. She also said the company will have personal autonomous vehicles by the middle of this decade. So much for that. And she adds they will be expensive.
Well, she's a very capable person leading a big company, and of course, I think GM should be in all those markets. Whether or not you and I, she or anybody, really needs to have a personal autonomous vehicle, I roll my eyes. I just don't know. Do I need a vehicle that I can then just send, down to where you live, that you can use, and then, ride around it and then send it back to me and I own it? I mean, it just, to me, it just doesn't sit well. I guess maybe I'm an old guy.
The Cruise Origin is something that we're really looking forward to.
Whereas the Cruise Origin, a vehicle that is, because if I'm not, we all want mobility, and the reason we buy these things is because we are capable of operating them. And when we use them to get the value of the mobility, we don't end up charging ourselves for their cost of our time. We contribute that. And so therefore, the very first sentence of anybody's lecture on transportation is the value of mobility. The value of transportation is improvement of place time utility. Is that wherever you are personally at a place, you want to go someplace else. Why? Because you think you think you're going to improve your quality of life. You're going to be a happier camper. That's why you go. I guess I'm here in my office today because I thought that I would be a happier camper here than working at home. Okay, or sitting on your lap, or going to Hawaii on vacation, or going to Mars, or any of the other things. Some of them, for me to do it would be enormously expensive. Okay, so the improvement of of place time utility, that's the good that I get out of it. It's going to cost me something. I mean, if transportation doesn't cost anything, then, it's kind of nice. It's only that. But, some of the places I don't go because it just costs too much. Don't go to Mars because it costs too much. I mean, talk about infinity, right? Can't even do it. Okay. And so the cost of doing it is really in there. The beauty of a personal automobile is somehow, they've set up, however we pay for that the perception of the cost, every time I, come here, today I walked, okay, I have the opportunity to walk and take my car, okay, but, it's because the cost of the transportation, even when you throw it on there and look at the cost of the transportation, doesn't dilute that utility improvement so much that you don't want to do it. Okay. And so that's the beauty of that. If I then have to pay even a lot to not drive when I can drive, and it really does, goes from A to B without it. I don't know. I don't think there's a market there. I'm not going to pay that. I don't think a lot of people, I don't think any, some small percentage of the folks that currently drive would say, hey, I'm going to pay for that. Now, if you allow me to take my hands off the wheel sometime with Super Cruise, or take my feet off the pedal, or, set the darn thing at a speed so that I don't have to worry about being pulled over by the cops, and it just does that for me and improves the comfort and convenience of me having it, absolutely. I buy that. I did. I mean, as soon as it was available on Mercedes, I was the first one down at the dealer saying, I gotta have it. Okay. And so a lot of people do it, and we've gotten to that point, and they've done a great job with Super Cruise and so on. And they can of course make it maybe even better, but to make it so that I don't need to drive anytime, I don't think it needs to go going that far, going the extra 10%, 3%, whatever it is. Those are the most expensive 10 and 3% that need to be on this technology. I don't think there's anybody who wants to pay for it. And the other thing that really gets it is if she does that for Cadillac and the thing's driving itself, then she's the one that's responsible if anything goes bad. I'm not driving. It's not my fault. Must be something must be product liability. Then she's got to make sure that she puts in all these vehicles enough of the sensors to be able to say, oh my goodness, you hit me, Fred. It's your problem. And she has to then, she's probably going to have to take care of me and then try to claw it back from you. But she can't just say, it can't be the automotive industry as it is now that says, hey, this is yours. The fine print says, even if you turn this thing on, at least up to this point, Mercedes, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, may have moved beyond that. It says, it's my responsibility if anything goes bad. First thing, I've got to carry insurance. And then maybe, my insurance kind of, says, hey, I'll take care of you. And if it was your fault, it goes claws it back from you. But all of a sudden, if she's going to put a product on the market in the middle of this, middle of the century, right? This decade, middle of this decade, right? Decade, not century.
That's just a few years away. Yes.
I don't think she can do it in the middle of the century. Not, the so-called level 4 with a large operational design domain. Level 5 is just like goofy. She won't be able to do that, for another ever, maybe. Okay. So that's the one end of the spectrum. Having the vehicle out there that they've worked so hard that it looks like NHTSA is finally saying it's okay, that's out there, that really can drive itself safely, from origin to destination the whole way without an attendant, without anybody in it. Therefore, it doesn't need a steering wheel, it doesn't need brake pedals, doesn't need all that stuff. That can provide mobility, as again, people, as you know, I say, like an elevator, you know, I show up, door opens, I get in, you show up, you get in with me, nobody else shows up, closes, we're all both going up, we both go up, door opens for me, I get out, closes, opens for you, you get out, we forget about it. That's mobility horizontally with the vehicle for crews. Now, that we want her and we want crews to come to Trenton and do it at Trenton. We open arms, welcome mat, everything. We want you to come. We'll make it as easy as possible for you to do that. And in fact, we're also going to make it so that you can do it in Mercer County after you show that you can do it in Trenton and throughout the whole darn state. You know, the state is in a welcome, my view, it's my perspective on the view, on the situation, that we're here waiting for that. Now, you know, we want 100 in Trenton. We want, I don't know, we eventually want 1,000 or more. We probably want, you know, 800,000 New Jersey, maybe 1 million. Hey, you know, you start producing that many and doing it in other states, and all the technology is of course Moore's Law-ish. This isn't an expensive vehicle. It is not. Plus, the productivity of that vehicle is, you know, it's going to be utilized instead of sitting around. What she sells to me now sits around 96% of the time. Who knows? I mean, it's like just sits around. Use maybe 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, maybe an hour. I mean, you look at the distribution, you look at 90 percentile. I mean, you know, vehicles in New Jersey, probably 90 percentile use less than an hour a day. I don't know. I mean, I should generate the chart. Okay.
Well,
And
there are more and more companies talking about building these quote robo taxis, so they're autonomous vehicles designed for mobility services.
I think there are a lot of people talking. There are a few people doing.
Well, Volkswagen.
There are only 2 of them that do.
Right.
Okay.
Volkswagen is planning to launch what they're calling a special purpose vehicle for robo taxis and deliveries. They're calling it the VW-SPV. This is according to Teslarati, and they're hinting that they may not have a steering wheel in there.
Well, yeah, no, a lot of gunners out there. There've been a lot of gunners, you know, for a lot of years. Okay, right now there are only 2. There's Waymo now in Chandler and in San Francisco, and there's GM Cruise in San Francisco. They're the only 2. Okay, they're the only 2 that do it. Now they're doing it in vehicles with steering wheels and so on, but there's nobody on, you know, behind the steering wheel. And the steering wheel, I mean, somebody should take a chainsaw to it and chop it off. It's used sometime, you know. And if NHTSA is not happy with that, then NHTSA should change. Okay, because they're behind the 8 ball, and they should you know, get real. And you know, those things operate within an operational design domain, which the folks that have built those things and put them out there are confident that they are safe. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it, because they're the ones that are responsible should anything happen. They're the ones that are going to pick up the tab. Waymo and GM Cruise are going to pick up the tab if there's a crash. And if that crash happens to be the fault of somebody else, for which they'll have plenty of data to be able to determine that, then they'll go claw it back from those folks. And they will, okay, seriously, because they want to make sure that what's out there in the public record is, in fact, they were safe. And they would not be doing this if they didn't, if their engineers and their people that worked did it without lying, cheating, and stealing. And they were confident that they could do that, because by doing that in San Francisco, you know, Mary, she's betting part of the ranch on that. That's those things start crashing out there, and it is the fault of Cruise. Cruise won't exist.
Right.
Okay, as we saw with when um, uh, Uber tried to go out there and get a little bit ahead of itself, and it was their problem that they killed one person, Alain Herzberg. And guess what? They aren't in that business anymore. Okay.
And as you've pointed out before, the value of the company isn't nearly.
Well, I mean, people were talking 120 and they went out at 60, so that's a difference of, let's see, Fred, Ivy League math, 60 billion. Okay, here we go. I mean, that's a pretty expensive faux pas.
From TechCrunch, a story, Aurora Innovation is launching its third autonomous freight pilot in Texas. They're using Aurora driver-powered trucks for Werner Enterprises this time, big trucking firm between El Paso and Fort Worth. They'd already been testing with Uber Freight and FedEx. So they're trying to grow this.
They're trying to grow this. And again, they're growing it appropriately. They're running those things with attendants on board, as they should, because they are tests. Okay, as they should. And great, they can do the data and see how many disengagements occur in those things. And at some point, they'll have enough confidence in that, the fact that there are no disengagements, and then maybe somebody's going to allow them, or they're going to then say, my goodness, we're betting a ranch that they don't crash, and put them out there without attendance. And as long as they keep them where, in fact, they've decided for themselves that these things are safe enough, fantastic. Okay, but my goodness, we're still somewhat early on this, and nobody's out there without a person on board. Okay, or at least
they're doing it responsibly, right?
Huh?
They're doing it responsibly.
They have to be responsibly. Okay, because in the end, the reason you pull the driver is so that you can more efficiently do this. And that efficiency is a valued product, either environmentally, socially, business-wise, and so on. Okay, that's why you pull the driver. It's not because you don't want the driver. It's because you can do more. You can deliver more freight. You can do more. Okay, but it has to be done safely, and by safely, it means that not that it should never crash, but the probability of crashing has to be pretty damn small number, 10 to the minus whatever.
Well, Qualcomm, Alain, has completed its acquisition of Veoneer's advanced driver assistance software business, Arriver. That just happened this week. It will compete, of course, with Mobileye and others in this business. And I guess the competition can be healthy.
The competition is healthy, and and welcome. I mean, Qualcomm's a fantastic entity, and certainly innovative over the years, and so on. And yes, I mean, they should be in there. It takes some amount of communications to do that, which they're somewhat in the communications business. It certainly takes computations, for which they certainly are within the computations business, and do
well. They've certainly been dominant in the mobile chips,
and the mobile chips and so on. And yeah, absolutely. So you have more than a few folks out there that again, the scale opportunity for all of this technology to be not only in the cars that we buy, but in the cars that provide mobility for others. I mean, this is a big business. That's why there's been 200 billion or whatever the number is since DARPA to be invested in this.
And we'd love to see them come to Trenton in June. And on that subject, that's scheduled for the first week of June.
Yep.
And give us a little more info, Alan.
Well, yeah, we'll start June 2nd, Thursday evening at my house for meet and greet and so on. And then Friday we'll be at Princeton to basically discuss what we're discussing here, the advancement and so on, the learning from others and the advancement that others have made in various sectors of this, both in the terms of people movement and the movement of goods, somewhat focused on yes, some research, but really focused on deployment, focused on actually putting this out on the street, so it actually delivers some economic and social value out there, and where best to do that, but here in New Jersey, and at least for our point of view, I'm from all the things that I've done in my classes and looking at data and looking at mobility, New Jersey is a microcosm of the United States. We have very dense areas, not as dense as Manhattan. There's only one Manhattan. We have very, very rural areas, and maybe not quite as rural as Nevada, but Pine Barrens are, so in fact we are really a microcosm of the U.S. And so it's Frank Sinatra may have wanted to do it in New York. This stuff, do it in New Jersey. You can do it anywhere.
Well, he was from here, so
yeah, he was from here. Yeah, so he deserves a little credit. So whatever, but yeah, and we're going to do that here on Friday and go over all that. We'll have a little banquet Friday night. I think I just got Adam Jonas from Morgan Stanley to basically give us an investment view of all this stuff as the keynote on the banquet speaker on Friday. I think he said yes today. Adam, if you didn't say yes,
you did now.
I'll take it back. I'll take it back. But I think you said yes. No, Adam's a good friend, and then Saturday to do it in Trenton, where at least that's where we'd like to start in New Jersey. We'd like to start with the people who could benefit, we think, the most from this, and just start where they live, and a mobility festival at Donnelly Homes, which is part of the Trenton Public Housing Authority, and everybody there wants us to do it. We're going to have a festival. We're gonna have. It's going to be a festival. People are going to be happy, and it's a mobility festival for the opportunity that those that are developing this technology to really educate us here in New Jersey, and for them to sort of understand and become educated as to what might be of interest in mobility from a potential customer here in New Jersey. So it's a win-win for both, to get together and do it in a festival environment. Why not? And so that's what we're going to do on Saturday, and we're doing it on Saturday so that we have the opportunity to have some of the people in New Jersey that are really the end customers, the end value proposition of all this, to have the opportunity to in a nice environment just begin to learn about this. Well, here in New Jersey, very few people know about this. We're not Chandler, Arizona, where we see cars all the time, or even Austin, Texas, or Miami, Florida, where they've been, or even Pittsburgh, which has been so fortunate to at least have much of the technology developed there and tested there. In New Jersey, I mean, been like four cars. I mean, we know nothing here, so we're dying to become educated by the rest of the world, and the venue is the summit.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure a lot of people are, and the smartdrivingcar.com has more info. That's where you can find us. And we want to take time here to thank Henry Posner for spending time with us. Really terrific having him here. Thank you also to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO. And more info is available at motoetf.com. Technical support is provided by CARTS, the Corporation for Automated Road Transportation Safety, a 501c3 corporation. As we said, you can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, wherever you get podcasts. You can get smart speakers to play us too, and you can find my tech reports at techstination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching. Please continue to stay safe.